Oh my goodness, we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Fraser. I'm the founder of Inner Glow Getter and the host of your Something to Chew On talk show. And we're sharing information and tools from experts on all topics from food and healing, spiritual growth, stress management, addiction, and really living your life's purpose. So really everything that is relative to living your healthiest, best life. So I'm really excited to announce today's guest, Alicen Humphreys, who is clean from heroin for over 10 and a half years. And I'm so excited to introduce Alicen. Today's topic is really for everybody who may be struggling with and maybe not even aware that you have addiction to drugs, alcohol, emotional addiction to food. All of these topics we're going to really start to dive into deeply. And I'm so excited to welcome Alicen. So Alicen, hello. Let's get you on there. I have you as like fairy godmother. That's so cute. So I'm so excited to have you, Alicen, and I'm really want to kick this call off by having you obviously introduce yourself and just share a little bit of your story, because you're probably like the last person people would think would become a heroin addict. You grew up in a good home, loving parents. You know, you're not the typical troubled child, and this is why I'm so excited to have you, because I think we all have a friend, a close person in our lives, ourselves, to look at some of these things that we call addiction. And to really kind of get to where we can, I guess, break this stigma of calling it addiction. And we'll get into that. But I'd love to hear a little bit of your story, if you could share with the audience, just how did this all transpire?
Where do I even start? Well, I'm Alicen. I am so excited to be here. So my addiction was definitely something that grew over time. It was not something that I woke up one morning and decided to do heroin. It was a slow process of stemming from unhealed wounds and unhealed childhood trauma, and not having those healthy coping mechanisms to be able to deal with life's adversity, right? So I lacked things like self-identity. I lacked self-love and worthiness, and was really using drugs and alcohol and just anything external, anything outside of me to fill those voids. And it just grew from there once I got into kind of the habit and just kind of leaning on it as a way to make myself feel better or to mask my feelings so that I didn't have to feel anything or try to be anything.
And when you say trauma, a lot of people would view that as like, were you abused as a child? Like, what were those things that you were avoiding, as a child? Like, what was your trauma?
I think my trauma, it's a really interesting word, because I think when we think about that, we think specifically like maybe physical abuse, but I think mine was very mental. And it wasn't that I was mentally abused. It was that I didn't have those healthy ways of managing those like certain thoughts and just adversity as a child. I think I felt, and this could have been something, these moments when these traumas that happened to us could have been something so small at that moment. It didn't really even mean anything, or somebody didn't mean for it to, like, for me to take it that way, but I held on to it in a certain way. And then kind of just, that became one of my truths. It just became one of my core beliefs about myself. And it could have been as quickly as a simple comment that somebody made. So not really knowing how to let those things kind of move through me easily, and holding on to it and just growing into something bigger.
Yeah. Wow. So almost like becomes like subconscious in a way, where
absolutely.
we're not even really aware. So I'm so curious, and for our live audience in there, you can also do little applauds when you see applauds. You can submit a question if you have a question for Alicen too. We will get to everybody's questions as well. So I love it. It's just nice to have the live connection, and we'll have some prompts for you too to fill out as well. So I'm so curious, what would you say, like, I would love for your definition of an addict. You know,
Mm.
when we think about an addict, we think of, I don't know, for me, it was like, you know, I picture some homeless person that is, you know, has this rough childhood and then they succumb to drugs and they're angry and this like, you know, but what would you say, how would you define an addict? What characteristics do you feel like you embodied that like
Yeah.
kind of led to that own awareness, like I have a problem?
Yeah. When you become dependent on anything, so when you're depending on drugs or alcohol or food to make yourself feel better or to not have to feel, to be able to avoid and just, forget things, that's when it's an issue. That's when it's just that's your thing that you're leaning on to make yourself feel
Wow.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that is true. It's, you know, it's so relative to food, to alcohol. If you can't go without, you know, there is some form of addiction going on there. And I'm so curious too from our audience members, we're just going to pop in, and if you want to type anything in the chat of what's one thing you hope to learn from today's event, you're welcome to type it in the chat right there, and then we can address that too as we go along. And now I'm so curious too, is this is so fun. This is so fun to do these things.
I know. I'm loving this.
So now we have, and I want to show this image too of you.
Yes.
You know, this is you in jail, a jail picture, right?
Yes.
A mugshot.
That's my mugshot. One of my mugshots.
Full on mugshot. And went from, and tell us, you know, what you started with, what drugs you were on to start with.
Yeah, so I started with opiates, so in the pill form, which meant Vicodin, Percocet, things like that. Then that grew into OxyContin, and then from there grew into heroin.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then how, you know, soon after all of that, did you realize like this is a problem and I need help? I'm so curious those inner workings of when you feel like you need help.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the exact moment that I realized that I put two and two together, that I was addicted to pills, because my then boyfriend at the time was already an addict, and I wasn't aware of that because I wasn't familiar with things, to look for those types of signs. But I remember he always had it. He always had OxyContin. He always had these pills around. And so it was just like, oh, do you want one? Oh, sure. And it just kind of was, casual and fun and recreational. And then it became every day. And then I remember waking up one morning and I was like, wow, I feel like shit. I feel like trash. I'm not happy. I don't know what's happening. And he was like, oh, it's because you haven't had any pills today. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then it clicked and I was like, oh my God, I'm addicted to these things. And the thing, you'd think that in that moment that you would be able to just be like, oh, I'm just going to be done. But it's so much more than a physical addiction. I mean, letting yourself grow into an addict where you're getting to that point. I mean, you are emotionally addicted to these behaviors. You're mentally addicted, and physically. So it's like, you're just consumed in addiction. So yeah, that was my exact moment. And I think I always knew, I mean, I wanted help. I didn't want to continue, but I didn't know how to get out of it alone.
Yeah. So, and that's a big thing. So when you're recognizing, okay, maybe there's a problem for some people watching, it might be alcohol, it might be cocaine. I probably know dozens just off the top of my head personally that probably don't even see that as a problem. But now if let's say you are recognizing like, oh my gosh, what this might be a problem, and you seek to get help. I'm really curious, as our next point is, you went to recovery center, and what were the key things that you felt like they taught you there, that you experienced there, that helped you get back to leading a healthy life?
Yeah. Number one, the thing that they had us do multiple times a day was learning how to reframe our subconscious, which sounds kind of complicated, but it's basically just a way of training your brain to process information in a different way, because we have these thought channels in our brain. And we, if we're thinking the same things over and over for years, I'm an addict, right? So I'm like, this is the way that I think. You have these deep rooted beliefs and these deep ways of thinking that you need to unwind and then create new thought channels that are going to lead you to healthier behaviors, healthier actions, healthier thoughts. So
what were some of your thoughts when you, like, if you could write it out, what was some of the thoughts that you were going through as an addict that you had to rewire?
Well, while I was at the treatment center when I first got there, because I was sentenced to treatment. That was part of my sentencing.
Yes.
Thank God. I'm so glad.
Right. Yeah.
But you're not, you have to be there, right? Or else you get in additional trouble. So I was like, I don't want to fucking be here. Like, I don't deserve this, very victim mentality, very like, I know everything. I don't need this type of thing. And just,
I love that you said victim mentality. Most people I think I know would never identify as themselves as a victim mentality when they're in that space, but they're maybe exhibiting behaviors of like, nothing's wrong with me. If you are that person that is sort of lashing back at people saying, nothing's wrong with me, everybody's out to get me, like, please just take a minute and like connect to your soul and think, maybe I am the addict.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, what would you say to that person? That's what we're kind of going to go into a little bit too. I kind of want to dive right into that piece of like speaking to the soul of an addict, because a lot of them, like for you, you knew you just needed to get out, but you're also still angry, a lot of anger and stuff. I can see that. And I see that in a lot of addicts too. There's a lot of anger, resentments, and
a lot of shame. I remember it's taken a long time to get rid of that shame, that embarrassment, that lack of self-worth was huge, not loving myself. So gosh, it's hard to say what to say to an addict in that moment, because I didn't want to hear. I'm trying to put myself back in those shoes, back in that space when I was there. And it was hard for my family. I remember it being hard for them to connect with me and to, they wrote me letters and they tried to talk to me and they tried to help and they tried to do everything that they could, but it was really hard to hear anything because I had tunnel vision. And it wasn't that I didn't like love them or didn't whatever, but it didn't matter. It was tunnel vision. My whole world surrounded this addict way of being. And so it's hard to self-reflect in those moments. But I do just remember, I mean, if you can, it's going to take some self-awareness and some, self-reflection, and to be able to just tell yourself that it doesn't have to be this way. Life doesn't have to be this way. And I think that was my turning point in treatment, because I was angry, and I had all those other feelings about it. And I was kind of getting in trouble in treatment, because I was trying to hold on to any bit of control, because I felt so out of control. And so I was trying to hold on to anything I could. But when I finally just surrendered into the help and into the process and into recovery, and I leaned into it, and I was like, life doesn't have to be like this. This is miserable. This sucks. Like I'm lonely and I'm just fucking miserable. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I can curse.
That's okay. That's okay. Most of my audience is from Alberta. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think, for me, I think a lot of people that might not know me, but I went to a 90-day center when I was 22 for depression, which to me is also in a way an emotional, like it's just a discord in your emotions. And I was using food and alcohol as a way of suppressing all of that, and ended up really depressed and in a 90-day facility, which did a lot of the similar work, which is, we reframed subconscious. We went and healing that relationship with food. And it was just it was a spiritual awakening for me around everything. And I had no idea, because what so many of us consider normal, drinking and partying and eating fast food and all that stuff felt so normal. And it was really, became just detrimental to my mental health. And I felt like I was in like an addiction recovery center myself, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. So, this is a great question we have from the audience. Same kind, I guess, we're similar topic. Is there any advice you have for the family members of an addict, which is kind of
Mm,
what we were speaking to, so now you're the family member, and, you said your family was doing everything that they could. And,
yeah.
you said you spoke to I think you spoke to it slightly, but what else would you say for the family member?
Yeah, and this is going to be going to be tough, because I know you, as a family member that cares about somebody that's, an addict, and risking their life, and every day, and you're kind of always
Yeah.
scared that you're going to get that phone call, right? The hard truth is that there's not a lot you can do. You
Mm-hmm.
can't force anyone to want to get better, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't force anyone into a treatment facility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think what my family experienced was a lot of heartache, because they wanted to help so bad, and nothing was working. And so you're just constantly stressed, constantly worried, constantly, and I think there's a point when you need to create healthy boundaries for yourself. And, and it's a hard truth, because I'm like, I was that addict, and I wanted
Wow.
my family around, but I think that, you need to be able to keep yourself safe as well. And
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of your family, if you have more family members, and be able to have those healthy boundaries, and just love somebody from a distance, because there isn't a lot you can do. You can, provide, access to resources, and say, here's, here are things, we're here for you when you're ready, I think, is what my family finally got to.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel bad. Like, it's hard to hear, once I got clean, and hearing everything that they went through, I was so sad. And, but I just wasn't there. I wasn't in the right
Yeah.
mind. It wasn't me,
Yeah.
so just remembering that too, that everything that addict is doing, it is not
Mm-hmm.
a reflection of who they are as a person, or their love for you. They are just
Mm-hmm.
not in, they have tunnel vision. They're not in a state of mind to
Yeah.
have healthy relationships, and to communicate in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I
yeah,
like that though. We're here for you when you're ready. And
yeah,
do you feel like when to be spoken to as an addict, do you want people to speak to you like your true self, like almost as though you're not an addict?
yeah,
Like, because I
absolutely.
think that's what I find is when people that I've watched become alcoholics, or everybody reaches out in this concerned way, and that's where they almost get triggered, because it's like, why are
Yeah,
you worried about me? But
yeah,
almost like speaking to them, like talking to their that true self, I think is
yes,
something that I found really helpful. I
yeah,
just speak to that person how I remember them,
yeah,
but as
absolutely.
though they're still that person, like, how's it going, and just sort of this normalcy.
Yeah, I have multiple friends that were still in my life, and still, I was a functioning addict
Yeah. Yeah.
in some ways. So,
Hmm.
I was still attending certain events, and people still, wanted to be around me, I
Hmm.
think, for up to a certain point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot
But
of functioning addicts out there
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Going to work every day. Yeah.
Right. And I had a friend specifically. I remember, I was at her house, and she was like, do you want me to, do you want to stay here? Or do you want me to, like, lock you in a room? I don't know. She was just like, but she was just talking to me normally, because we both
Yeah.
knew at that point what the situation was. I was using heroin,
Yeah.
and it was out of control. And she was like, what can I do? Like, do you want me to do anything? And so it was speaking to me as if I was my true self, just like you said. That's such a good point.
Hmm.
Like, I'm that same person, because I was in a,
Yeah.
just buried. Um,
Yeah.
and she was just like, okay, I was like, no, I'm not ready to be done yet. And I said that to her. I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
ready. And she was like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm
I've dated people like that,
here.
that when I brought it up, they were like, I'm not stopping this. And I was like thinking like, oh, let's get you help. Like,
Yeah, because you want
um,
to, and I get it, but it's just, you're gonna spin your wheels, and your mental
yeah.
health, and your well-being is
Yeah.
gonna suffer if you
Yeah.
don't just set that boundary and love from a distance.
Yeah. Great next question, which is really where I wanted to go back to too, which is, you mentioned you went into recovery, and that first like rewiring the thought patterns, like
Mhm.
going in and every day. And someone asked, what is the biggest obstacle you've overcome after recovering and getting back to normal life? So what were some of those? I'm kind of curious to tie that into like, what were those other steps that you went through? You went through subconscious reframing. What else was included in that recovery process? And
Yeah.
then I think that kind of leads into what was that obstacle, those big
Yeah.
obstacles.
I mean, definitely reframing my subconscious. I still do that.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing thing that
Yeah. I do it too. I think it's a
yeah,
daily practice. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's much, much stronger now, and it's much easier for me to do. And I love doing it. It's something that I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
practicing. But at the time, that definitely was something that took time. And
Yeah.
I think specifically in my situation, because I had criminal charges, those, if I'm thinking of external things, those were big obstacles for me to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting back the pieces, because I was, in a lot of debt, and I had to start over as far, in the job, searching for a job and putting my
Yeah.
resume together. And, I couldn't get a bank account because of my criminal behavior. So
Wow.
there was a lot of things that were really hard, and I had to kind of figure out workarounds because I still had bills to pay. I was getting
Mm-hmm.
myself back into society and back into that process. And I was like, okay, how can I make this work? So I had a lot of workarounds. And it took time to get myself, my credit score back together. But it's like, but it happened, it took time,
Yeah.
but I think just being able to kind of just continue to take those steps forward, just one step at a time, baby.
And
And
what was your guiding light?
mm,
What would you say was the thing that kept you going, the thing that keeps you on that path?
yeah, that's such a great question. And I don't know if it's one thing. Um,
Yeah.
I had a lot of inner strength. I think I always have had that. And I think that was something I definitely harnessed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Just sitting in that mindset and knowing that this moment, this time where it feels really hard, and I'm, thinking that oh my gosh, all my friends that I went to high school with are so much further along than me. Like, and I'm having to start over from square one and getting a job that pays minimum wage. And, when all my friends at this point have families,
Yes.
careers and everything, but just kind of
Yes.
coming
And
back
getting
to,
second mortgages or
yeah.
whatever, like
And
their
I was like,
vacation properties. And you're like, I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
I can imagine that being, I think many people can relate to that. Not
right.
the addict or no addict.
Right. But just remembering
Yeah.
that this is only temporary. It's not going to be like this
Mm,
forever. And I just had this inner voice that was like, you are meant for so much more. Like, this is not your
mm,
story. This is not where you have to live. And I just held on to that. And when I, that was my kind of internally what I did. And then I had such amazing support from my family and my friends.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
yeah, I feel very, very grateful that I had such a supportive community and family that just had my back the entire time. Like, the minute I went into treatment, it was like they were there, they were visiting, they were sending me things, and yeah, I just feel really blessed about
I
that.
love that. You are meant for so much more. That's a really powerful statement to speak to the ones that are out there. Like, your family deserves more from you.
Yeah.
Your some people, it's their children. Like, you have children to raise. You have
Yeah.
loved ones to support. Like, I think that's really, really powerful statement.
Yeah.
And now this is a great question too. Great questions, guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. I love it.
Love it.
I love the applause come up. So how did you overcome the triggers that many experience in recovery? Do you still struggle with any now? No
Mm.
triggers ever, I'm sure. That's a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
you overcome the triggers?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was first in recovery, I was in my treatment center for 8 months. So I was living there. That was my home. And
Mhm.
then I lived in a sober living house with other women that were in recovery, and was very active in the recovery community, going to meetings. So it was easy for me. My whole world was surrounded by other people in recovery. So there so that was kind of one, is I didn't surround myself with people that might trigger me in certain ways. As far
Mhm.
as feelings that might happen, or just other sort of internal triggers, I think that I just continued to lean on that strength within me. And I don't know, once I had that turning point that I knew that I was never going to look back. I was like, I'm never going to use again. I'm never going to go back to jail. That is not my story. That fucking sucked. and
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I just knew. So it was easy for me to move through any sort of triggers that would happen. I do not experience triggers now. It's been a
Wow.
really long time. I'm coming up on 11 years in February, free from addiction.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
11 years. That's, yeah, big celebrations, everybody.
I love
Love
it.
that.
Yeah. So I don't, and I haven't in a long time.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And, when you say the subconscious, I know you do a lot of support for other people you have, guides on managing anxiety. And that's kind of how I want to actually, I wonder if this link will go back to us. This is just normal again. Yay. You know, what I want to finish with is really around the questions of, people that maybe have that, emotional eating problems, or, the overeating, the sugar, the overarching kind of stuff that people deal with. You have guides on helping people with anxiety. And a lot of people, I don't know if they really recognize. I mean, I think there's a cognizant understanding of, okay, maybe my anxiety or my stresses are causing my eating problems, or
Yeah.
my, and I always say, like, I like to say your relationship with food, because it's not always what you're eating, it's that relationship you have with eating, right?
Yes.
Like, what I
Yep.
found too is some people, they start to get into this, what we were talking about earlier, even looking at an addict as though like addicts are bad. And it's like,
Right.
no, of course not. And,
Yeah.
or emotional eating is bad even. And it's this bad, good mentality. And then they start to, in my work, it's like, I really work with people around food, and it's that, seeing, then they start to see, like, oh, if they're eating out of stress and then they're eating certain food, they start to negate and judge that piece, that food or that substance.
Yeah.
And like, as though that's the thing that's bad. And it's like, no, it's that relationship that you're
Yeah.
having with it. So I'm so curious how you, how you feel about the anxiety, or what those underlying things are to support someone to become, I almost want to say, like, a trigger-free life. What are some of those other tools to
Yeah.
help people with whether it be eating, whether it be substance use? What are those tools to help?
Yeah.
Besides the subconscious reframing is absolutely a huge one.
Huge. I love it so much. That propelled me through my healing journey and continues to support me in my healing and growing. But let's see. Sorry, if the question was what other things.
Yeah. What other tools?
Yeah. So I love that you say relationship with food, because that's exactly how I phrase it about anxiety. It is your relationship with anxiety, not just I have anxiety, my anxiety, where we own this thing, right?
Yes.
And for me, I spent some time where I struggled with anxiety and panic attacks, which is why it's so important to me to help people move through that. But I didn't know, I'll say, I didn't know at the time that it was anxiety. When it was first happening, I honestly thought there was something physically wrong with me. I was like,
like you're having a heart attack or a heart condition or something. Yeah,
absolutely.
I've had that too.
Or a head, because I get lightheaded sometimes, and I get little tingles if I'm experiencing an attack. And so it was like, oh, there has to be. It's my brain. I'm having a heart attack, whatever it was. And so it took a little bit of time and going to a lot of different doctors, unfortunately, to really figure out that, oh, this is anxiety. And when I went to doctors, they prescribed me medication, which I tried, daily medication, and I tried it for a little bit, but I was like, can we get to the root of this though? Because it's so much deeper than just giving me something. And am I going to have to take this forever? And for me, I just wasn't interested. I'm not saying that it's bad by any means, and that's not my medical advice, definitely. Yeah. But for me, I really wanted to see, like, can I heal this? Is there the way that I can heal this and make this better, without having to use anything external? So I went through a lot of trial and error and just kind of learning that It's improving my relationship with anxiety. It's going through, and healing really those things that was triggering anxiety. So similar to the way that you heal traumas and things that trigger addiction behaviors, or dependency behaviors, I'll say, it's the same thing. Something deeper is triggering you, and then you just don't have the healthy coping mechanisms and the right processes to be able to let that anxiety move through you. Because listen, I still get anxiety. I just don't, it just doesn't weigh on me like it used to. It doesn't have that control on me because I've improved my relationship with anxiety. So now when I feel anxious, it's like, oh, I'm feeling anxious just like any other feeling, right? I can feel happy, I can feel sad, I can feel angry. But when I'm angry, do I Hulk out? And no, I don't. When I'm feeling anxious, I can just let that move through my body with ease because I understand my relationship with anxiety and how it affects my body physically. That's been a big part for me too, is understanding where does anxiety manifest for me physically, and then I can comfort those places. And those are some of my tools that I use and some of the things that I teach in my guides. So that's definitely that would be my biggest
awesome. And we're going to be linking up Alicen's guides to managing through anxiety and moving through anxiety and things like that. And also, please don't hesitate to reach out to her, whether you're watching this recording, if you are dealing with addiction, if you are and just want a friend to talk to, need some support. This woman is biggest heart I know to support people through this. So I really do just recommend you follow her on her Instagram and just stay in touch with her, and don't hesitate to reach out to her. She's my friend. She's your friend. She's there for you. And I think that you're more of a relatable face to connect to. So I hope that people can really see that and take advantage of reaching out to get support. And even if it's just an encouraging word. So our final question here today we have is a great question. Great questions, guys. Good audience you are. Outside of "you were meant for so much more," did you do any other affirmations to help with your recovery, and what were they?
I love affirmations. So yes, I do. I think that they've evolved over time. So I started with simple things, and that's actually kind of started with the reframing, right? Because I'd be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want, I don't deserve this. And it was like, I get to be here. I am worthy of treatment. I am worthy of healing. I am worthy of living the life that I deserve to live. So it really evolves for me, depending on where I'm at in my life at the time and what I'm going through. But for anyone that's new to affirmations, you can start simple. I am capable. I am loved. I am safe. I am at peace. I actually have an affirmations guide that has I am affirmations. It's free. It's in my bio on my Instagram too. So
amazing.
I love it. I mean, it's just so it's powerful and very impactful for your overall mental health, no matter where you are, to be able to have that positive self-talk.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful. And people don't realize the power of things like affirmations, the power of speaking it, writing it. For our groups, we have speak it, write it, hear it, listen to listening to it, writing it, seeing it, all of those senses need to embody that affirmation. And it's amazing how you can really go from I suck at life and all these different words that kind of come out of our heads and start seeing those as the lie.
Yeah.
Right. People say oh no, I'm not confident. No, the lack of confidence is the lie. You are a confident person. You are these things, and you start to affirm these truths, and it calls them out in you.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a beautiful share and great simple tool that some people can start right now, right? Absolutely. With whatever might be going on. So amazing, everybody. Any final questions? We are at our 30 minutes here, and so excited. This is such a great conversation, especially around those pieces of overcoming that addiction and really working through the reframing of the subconscious. Is there any final things that you want to share with the audience? Somebody that might be struggling right now with, I don't know, just feeling lack of self-worth. And, we actually, as a final touch point too, is that, what we were saying earlier in our private conversation around, you know, addiction isn't always to drugs, alcohol, food, but it can also be lack. It can
Yeah.
be grief. It can
Yep.
be lack of self-worth, like financial lack, struggling, like that can also be a form of addiction to those
Yep.
emotions, and recognizing that we really do have this power. Like, we are the creators. I always want to finish on a note of, we are these creators of our lives through our words and ways of being. So
Absolutely.
what would you say as a final note to people who are, you know, maybe just dealing with some of those feelings and those
Yeah.
shame and lack of self-worth and feeling like a loser, or that they're not where they wanted to be in life?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. To anyone that's in that space, I have been there. I was there for a long time, and I hear you. I see you. I know exactly what that feels like, and you are not alone. It feels like a really lonely place, but there are so many other people that are experiencing these same things, and there's nothing wrong with you. You know, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's just you are so loved, and you are so worthy of creating the life that you want. And if you don't know where to start, just start, you know, following people that inspire you, and surrounding yourself with you know, positive words and positive affirmations and things like that. So you're definitely
Beautiful.
not alone, and you are so loved, and you are worth it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so amazing. So as a final note, we do have a thing that we love to have everybody complete. If you're watching the recording or on your live, if you are interested in getting more support in your health goals, we always like to see what your goals are. There is a button there so you can submit your health goals, and we'll be sending in the show notes links to Alicen's page and her guides that you can download, the I am statements that you can get started with, and just stay on the path towards your own health and healing, and your own health and healing, even if you're dealing with someone that might be an addict, to maintain your own mental sanity. So thank you so much for coming. I have all these cute, look at my little thank you page. So cute. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that this spreads to so many people that need to hear this message and know that they can move through some of these things and get that support, and just admit that they need help.
Yeah. This uncomfortable space is only temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
And you're
much
such a
for
testament to
talking
it. Thank you so much. You have a beautiful day. Thank you to our live audience. Thank you for coming and supporting and being there live. It's so lovely to have you and your cheers. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
Thank you.